People say kindness never goes unnoticed, but Nurse Amina never believed that. Not until the morning a billionaire in a black luxury car appeared at her tiny doorstep, eyes desperate, voice trembling, and revealed a truth that would shake her world forever. She had unknowingly saved the one person the world's richest man had been searching for, his missing mother. Amina had always believed the world could be harsh, but she also believed that a small act of kindness could soften it, at least for someone. That belief carried her through long nights, tiring shifts, and a life that never seemed to get easier. She didn't have money, status, or luxuries. She lived in a single-room house that leaned slightly to the left whenever strong winds blew. But she had something she considered even more valuable, a heart that refused to stop caring. Her job at the local clinic didn't pay much. Some months, she barely managed to cover rent, food, and transport. Yet every evening, without fail, she took a small bag of leftover medicine and a container of warm food, bought with her own savings, and walked to the old bus station at the edge of the town. That is where she first met the woman who would change her life forever. The woman had been sitting at the far corner of the abandoned bus stop, her body wrapped in torn layers of clothing that smelled like dust, rain, and forgotten places. Her hair was thin and gray, tangled like dry straw. Her eyes were sunken, haunted by something that felt old, older than fear, older than sadness. Amina had approached her cautiously that day. "Assalamu alaikum," she said softly. The woman didn't respond. Not with words, at least. She simply stared at the ground as if she didn't deserve to look up. Amina placed a container beside her. "It's warm. You should eat." The woman slowly lifted her head. Her lips trembled. She swallowed hard as if debating whether she had the right to accept help. I don't want trouble," the woman whispered. "You're not trouble," Amina replied. "You're a human being." And that became their routine. Every day after work, Amina would visit her. At first, the woman barely spoke. She would nod, eat quietly, and look away whenever Amina tried to ask questions. Weeks passed before she finally offered her name, or what Amina assumed was her name. "Sarah," she said one rainy evening, her voice almost too soft to hear. Still, she refused to share anything else. "Where are you from? Are you alone? Do you have family?" Every question was met with the same anxious reply. "I'd rather not say." Amina didn't push her. People with scars, real scars, the invisible kind, needed time. One cold night, the woman collapsed. Amina rushed to her side, heart pounding as she checked her pulse. It was weak. Her breathing was shallow and painful. "You need treatment," Amina said urgently. "No hospitals," the woman begged, gripping her wrist weakly. "Please. No hospitals." Amina hesitated. Everything inside her told her to take this woman to the clinic, to a proper doctor, to a bed and real care. But the raw panic in Sarah's eyes wasn't normal fear. It was the fear of someone who had run from something, or someone, for far too long. "Okay," Amina whispered. "Then I'll treat you myself." From that night onward, Amina became more than just a visitor. She became a secret caregiver. She used her own money to buy antibiotics, pain relievers, and basic medical supplies. She cleaned Sarah's wounds, made her drink soups, and wrapped her in a warm blanket she'd taken from her own bed. And every time Sarah asked why she was helping her, Amina replied the same way. "Because you deserve to be treated with dignity." Sarah would sometimes cry quietly. Not loud sobs, just silent tears rolling down a face that had forgotten how to feel safe. One morning, Amina arrived and saw Sarah holding a photograph. Her hands trembled as she stared at it. When Amina stepped closer, Sarah panicked and hid the picture under her clothes. "You shouldn't see that," she said in a brittle voice. It's all I have left." Amina didn't ask again. She simply sat beside her, feeling the weight of secrets she wasn't meant to know. Over the next few days, Sarah grew weaker. Amina could see it, the way her fingers shook, the way her breaths came slowly, the way her eyes seemed to drift in and out of clarity. "You need real help," Amina whispered one evening. Sarah looked away. There's no one left who would care. You don't know that, Amina insisted gently. Sarah closed her eyes. I've seen too much. Lost too much. I can't go back. To where? Sarah shook her head. Please don't ask. Please just stay with me. Amina stayed, even when her coworkers wondered why she was always late leaving work. Even when her grocery bill grew higher. Even when she barely had anything for herself. She stayed. Then came the morning that changed everything. Amina woke early, exhausted but ready to take warm soup to Sarah. She grabbed her bag, stepped out of her house, and froze. A black luxury car was parked right outside her small, crooked gate. It wasn't just any car. It looked like the kind that didn't belong in her neighborhood. The kind that cost more than her house, her clinic, and her entire street combined. The door opened slowly. A tall man stepped out, wearing a perfectly tailored suit. His expression wasn't cold or arrogant like she would have expected from someone so wealthy. Instead, his eyes were red, almost desperate, as if he hadn't slept in days. Are you Nurse Amina? He asked. She blinked in confusion. Yes, who are you? The man swallowed hard, his voice shaking. My name is Zion Malik. She recognized the name immediately. Everyone in the city knew him, the billionaire businessman who owned hospitals, hotels, and half the tech companies in the region. He was the kind of man people only saw on television. What are you doing here? She asked, stunned. He took a shaky breath, his hands trembling slightly. You've been taking care of a homeless woman at the old bus station, haven't you? Amina froze. Her heart began to pound. How do you know about her? She whispered. Zion's eyes glistened with emotion. Because, he said, voice cracking, that woman is my mother. Amina felt every bone in her body go still. His mother? Sarah? Impossible. He stepped closer. Please, tell me she's alive. Amina stared at him, unable to speak. The world tilted beneath her feet as everything she thought she knew suddenly changed. Zion continued, choking on his words. She disappeared years ago. Depression, trauma, she ran away. We searched everywhere. Every day. Every night. But she was just gone. Amina finally found her voice, trembling. She's alive. But she's very weak. Zion exhaled shakily, tears spilling down his face. He covered his mouth as his legs seemed to give way for a moment. You saved her, he whispered. You, a stranger, saved her when I couldn't even find her. Amina shook her head quickly. I didn't do anything special. You saved my mother's life, he repeated, firmer this time. And I will never forget that. But Amina wasn't thinking about rewards or gratitude. She was thinking about Sarah, alone, scared, suffering, while her son searched the world for her. We need to go, Amina said urgently. She needs help. Zion nodded, wiping his eyes. Take me to her. As they walked toward the old bus station, Amina could feel the world changing with every step. She didn't understand how or why, but something deep inside told her. Nothing in her life would ever be the same again. The sky was still gray when Amina and Zion hurried down the narrow path that led to the abandoned bus station. Birds were barely waking, and the cold morning air bit at their skin. But neither of them felt the chill. Their minds were too heavy, too focused on what awaited them. Amina's footsteps were quick, almost frantic. She kept glancing at Zion, who followed closely behind her. His polished shoes were getting dusty, but he didn't seem to notice. His jaw was tight, his eyes filled with a fear deeper than anything Amina had ever seen on a man who owned empires. Are you sure she's alive? He suddenly asked, his voice trembling despite his attempts to sound strong. Yes, Amina said, breathless. I saw her last night. She was very weak, but she was breathing. A sharp breath escaped him, a mixture of hope and agony. What condition is she in? He asked quietly. Amina hesitated. Malnourished. Sick. Exhausted. And very scared. She avoids hospitals, avoids anyone in uniform. Whenever I ask her about her past, she panics.
Zion swallowed hard. She wasn't always like that. His voice cracked slightly. She was strong, gentle,
the kind of woman people felt safe around. Amina stayed silent, letting him speak. But after my father died, something broke inside her, he continued. The depression, the grief, it swallowed her. He paused, blinking rapidly. And then one day, I came home, and she was gone. She left a note saying she didn't want to be a burden.
Amina's heart tightened painfully.
She imagined Sarah, the fragile woman she'd been feeding and treating, being the same person who once comforted a child, smiled proudly at birthdays, hugged her family tightly. Life was cruel in ways that people didn't see until it was too late.
When the bus station finally came into view, Zion slowed down.
His breath hitched as he saw the corner where Sarah always sat, the worn cement, the frayed blanket, the small space that had become a shelter for a woman who once belonged to a mansion.
Amina felt dread crawl up her spine. The spot was empty. Her pace quickened.
Sarah, she called softly, scanning the area. Sarah, it's me. I brought food, Sarah.
Nothing.
Zion stepped forward, eyes wide, panic rising.
She's not here. She's not here.
Did we come too late? No, Amina insisted, though her voice shook. She can't have gone far. They split up, searching behind the abandoned ticket counter, near the rusted benches, behind the pillars.
Amina's heartbeat thundered in her ears. Sarah, she called again.
Please answer.
Suddenly, Zion stopped.
Amina, his voice was low, trembling. Over here.
She rushed to him.
Sarah was lying behind a broken vending machine, curled up, barely conscious. Her breathing was shallow, her skin pale as if all warmth had drained out of her. Her frail hands gripped the blanket Amina had given her days ago.
Amina knelt beside her immediately. Sarah.
Sarah, can you hear me? The woman's eyes fluttered open slowly. Her gaze was unfocused until it drifted toward Zion. She froze. Not in recognition, at least not immediately, but in fear. No, no hospitals, no more, she whispered weakly, her voice strained.
Zion's face crumpled.
He knelt beside her, his hand shaking as he reached for her but stopped just inches away. As if afraid one wrong move would make her disappear again.
Mom, he whispered.
It's me. It's Zion. Sarah blinked, confusion clouding her expression. She stared at him for a long time, seconds that felt like hours, before a flicker of something familiar appeared in her hollow eyes. Zion, she whispered, as if saying the name hurt her. Yes.
He let out a sob he'd been holding back for years.
It's me.
I found you. I finally found you.
Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks. A trembling hand lifted toward his face.
My boy, she whispered.
You grew up.
Zion broke.
He leaned forward and held her hand gently, as if she were made of glass. I have been looking for you every single day.
Every night.
I thought I lost you forever. Amina quietly turned away, giving them a precious moment. She had seen reunions before, people finding each other after disasters, accidents, or tragedies, but nothing this raw.
Nothing this fragile. Nothing this sacred.
After a few moments, Sarah's breathing grew heavier again. Her eyelids drooped. Amina immediately leaned forward and checked her pulse. She needs medical care now, she said firmly. She won't survive another day like this.
Sarah panicked again.
No, no hospital, you don't understand.
Zion squeezed her hand.
Mom, you're safe.
I'm here. I won't let anything happen to you. But you need help. Sarah shook her head weakly.
They'll take me away, they'll hurt me.
Amina placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. No one will hurt you. You have my word. Zion exhaled shakily.
Mom, I'll take you to a private facility.
No one will know. No reporters. No doctors you don't trust.
I'll stay with you the whole time. Sarah looked torn, terrified, and exhausted. Amina leaned close to her, whispering softly, "I've been treating you all this time, haven't I? I never left you. I will be with you there too." Something softened in Sarah's eyes. Trust, small, fragile, but present. She nodded weakly. Zion lifted her carefully, cradling her in his arms like a child. She weighed almost nothing. Her head leaned against his chest as her breathing grew slow and uneven. Amina walked beside them, holding Sarah's blanket around her tightly to keep her warm. When they reached the car, a driver stepped out in shock at the sight of Zion carrying a frail homeless woman. But one glare from Zion silenced him instantly. "Open the door. And call Dr. Hamid. Tell him it's an emergency," Zion ordered. The driver obeyed without question, dialing the number immediately. Amina hesitated before getting into the car. I shouldn't come," she said softly. "This is a family matter now." Zion turned to her. "No. You're coming with us." Amina blinked. "But you saved her when no one else did," he said firmly. "You didn't just give her medicine. You gave her dignity. You gave her love. And right now, she trusts you more than she trusts anyone." Amina hesitated, then nodded and stepped into the car. The ride was silent except for Sarah's faint breaths and Zion's quiet whispers. "Stay with me, Mom. Please stay." Amina sat beside her, holding her hand gently, keeping her awake whenever she drifted. And each time, Sarah opened her eyes and whispered one word. "Amina." The billionaire's eyes softened each time he heard it. Gratitude, disbelief, and awe all mixed together in his expression. When they reached the private hospital, one of Zion's own, a medical team rushed out instantly. They lifted Sarah onto a stretcher, hooking her to oxygen, checking her vitals. Zion walked beside her the entire way, gripping her hand like he'd lose her if he let go. Amina followed quietly, but every doctor nodded at her when they realized who she was, the stranger who kept this woman alive long enough to be found. Inside the special care room, doctors worked quickly. Machines beeped. Oxygen hissed. Nurses moved around with precision. Severe malnutrition. Dehydration. Possible infection. Trauma-induced anxiety. Words that stabbed Zion with guilt each time. Amina watched silently, her hands trembling. She'd tried so hard to help Sarah, but seeing her hooked up to machines she never had access to made her feel helpless. Zion stepped beside her. "You kept her alive," he whispered. "If not for you, she wouldn't be here right now." Amina shook her head. "I didn't do enough." "Yes," he said softly. "Yes, you did. You did more than I ever could." When the doctors finished stabilizing Sarah, they left the room with instructions to monitor her closely. The room grew quiet, except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Zion sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Years of grief, guilt, and fear spilled out in trembling breaths. Amina sat beside him quietly. "You know," he finally said, voice rough, "I always thought money could solve everything. That I could buy solutions, resources, hope. But I couldn't buy this. I couldn't buy kindness. I couldn't buy you." Amina blinked in surprise. "I didn't do it for anything." "I know," he said gently. "That's what makes it even more powerful." Silence settled between them, heavy, but not uncomfortable. After a long pause, Amina spoke softly. "She'll get better. She has you now. That alone will help her heal." Zion looked at her, eyes filled with something unspoken. "I won't let her go again. I can't." Just then, a soft groan came from the hospital bed. Sarah's eyes opened slowly. Her gaze drifted between her son and Amina. "Zion," she whispered, her voice weak but more present. "I'm tired." He rushed to her side, holding her hand. "Rest, Mom. You're safe now. I'm here." But Sarah's eyes moved to Amina. "Thank you," she whispered, "for seeing me when no one else did." Amina placed her hand on Sarah's gently. "You're not alone anymore." A faint tear slipped down Sarah's cheek. And for the first time since Amina had met her, Sarah smiled.
Just a little. Just enough.
The room filled with a quiet, fragile peace, the kind that comes only after years of storms. Amina stepped back, letting mother and son share a moment of tenderness, of reunion, of healing. But in her heart, she had no idea that her own life was about to change in ways she could never imagine. This was only the beginning. The following 2 days unfolded like a slow, emotional storm, exhausting, overwhelming, but filled with a hope that had long been forgotten. Sarah remained in the hospital under close supervision, her condition slowly stabilizing. Her color improved slightly, her breathing evened out, and she would open her eyes more often, though still fragile and easily overwhelmed. Amina stayed by her side as much as she could.
Zion insisted on it.
In fact, he arranged a quiet room for Amina to rest, meals brought to her, and transportation whenever she needed it, but she refused most of those luxuries.
I'm here for her, she kept telling him.
I know, he would reply softly. And that means more than anything. On the third morning, Amina entered the room and found Zion sitting in an armchair beside his mother, holding her hand gently. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his usually polished hair slightly messy, but there was a softness to his expression that hadn't existed before. Good morning, Amina whispered. He lifted his head, forcing a tired smile. You're early. I wanted to check her vitals, she said, moving closer. Zion nodded and stepped aside, watching as Amina checked the readings with practiced hands. His eyes followed every movement, focused, grateful. Sarah stirred slightly at the sound of their voices. Her eyes fluttered open.
Amina, she whispered weakly. Amina leaned closer. I'm here. How do you feel?
Better, Sarah murmured, then turned her gaze to her son.
And he stays here all night.
Zion smiled faintly. I'm not leaving you again. A shadow of guilt crossed Sarah's face. I caused you so much trouble. No, Zion said firmly, leaning closer.
You didn't. You were hurting. I didn't see it.
That's on me. Amina watched the exchange quietly, feeling a lump rise in her throat. There was something sacred about witnessing a family repair itself, something she rarely saw in the small clinic where life's wounds often remained open. After a moment, Sarah reached for Amina's hand with her trembling fingers.
Can you stay? She asked softly. Amina nodded. Of course.
The three of them stayed there for a long while in silence, Sarah resting, Zion sitting quietly, and Amina watching over them both.
But eventually, Zion stood. I need some fresh air, he said. Will you be okay with her for a bit?
Amina is here, Sarah murmured. I trust her.
Amina smiled gently. Go.
You need the rest. He nodded, grateful, and stepped out. As soon as the door closed, Sarah sighed deeply. There's something I need to tell you, she whispered.
Amina frowned softly. You don't have to force yourself.
You need rest. I need to tell someone before I lose the courage, Sarah insisted, her voice trembling.
Amina pulled a chair closer.
I'm listening.
Sarah's weak fingers played with the edge of her blanket.
Her eyes glistened with a mixture of shame and pain. I wasn't always like this, she began. I wasn't always broken.
Amina didn't interrupt.
I had everything once.
A home. A loving husband.
A son who adored me.
Sarah paused.
And then my husband died, suddenly. No warning.
Amina nodded gently.
Zion told me a little. But he didn't tell you the worst part, Sarah whispered. Because he doesn't know.
A chill crept up Amina's spine.
What do you mean? Sarah swallowed, her voice cracking. After my husband died, I fell into a darkness so deep, it felt like drowning.
Every day. Every night.
I tried to pretend for Zion's sake, but he was young. He didn't see the full extent. Amina placed a comforting hand over hers. One day, Sarah continued, I had a panic attack so severe that I collapsed on the kitchen floor.
I thought I was dying.
And I told myself something I should never have believed. She breathed shakily. I told myself that I was a burden. That Zion deserved better. That if I disappeared, he might heal.
Amina's heart clenched painfully. So I left. I walked away from my home. My life.
My son.
Sarah's face twisted with regret.
I thought I was doing him a favor.
A tear rolled down her cheek. But depression lies. It tells you the cruelest things.
I ended up on the streets, afraid of everything. I lost my ID, my money, everything.
And every time I thought of coming back, I felt paralyzed. Amina squeezed her hand gently.
You were struggling. You didn't abandon him out of lack of love. I abandoned him out of fear, Sarah whispered. And that's the worst kind.
Amina leaned forward. Fear breaks people. But love brings them back. And he loves you more than you know.
He searched for you for years. Sarah closed her eyes tightly, a sob escaping her. I don't deserve it.
Amina shook her head firmly. You deserve healing. You deserve forgiveness. And you deserve a second chance.
Sarah looked at her with weak but grateful eyes. If I hadn't met you, I wouldn't be here. I would have died alone. Amina blinked away tears.
No one deserves to die alone.
Especially someone with so much love still left in them. Sarah smiled faintly, tiredly. You're a blessing, child. Before Amina could respond, the door opened softly. Zion returned, holding 2 cups of coffee. He paused when he saw both women with tears on their faces. His expression shifted to concern. Is everything okay? He asked gently.
Amina nodded quickly.
Yes, she's just tired. We were talking. Zion stepped closer to his mother, brushing a stray hair from her forehead.
Don't push yourself, Mom.
Rest. Sarah smiled weakly, squeezing his hand. I'm just happy you're here.
He leaned down and kissed her forehead.
Always.
A soft knock interrupted the moment. Dr. Hamid entered with a clipboard.
He looked at Sarah with a careful, professional smile. I have some updates, he said.
Good ones.
Zion straightened immediately, hope lighting his eyes. Tell us. Sarah looked nervous. Amina placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Dr. Hamid flipped through the papers. Her infection has responded well to treatment. Her hydration levels are improving. And the nutrient therapy is stabilizing her strength.
Zion let out a breath of relief. So, she'll be okay? He asked quietly.
With continued care, supervision, and emotional support, Dr. Hamid replied, yes. But she must stay here for at least a week under observation.
Sarah tensed. A week?
No, please, I don't want to. We'll be here the whole time, Amina whispered.
Zion nodded immediately. I won't leave your side.
Sarah calmed slightly, though fear still lingered in her eyes. After the doctor left, Zion sat on the couch across from Amina while Sarah rested. He looked at Amina with a deep intensity she wasn't sure how to read. You know, he said softly, I don't think I'll ever be able to repay you for what you did.
Amina shook her head.
I didn't do anything expecting a reward.
That's exactly why it's so unbelievable, he said.
Most people wouldn't give a homeless person a second glance. You gave her warmth, food, medicine, love.
Amina lowered her eyes shyly. She needed help.
Anyone would have.
No, Zion cut in gently. Not anyone. You. His words flustered her.
She wasn't used to such praise, especially not from someone like him.
I just did what was right, she murmured.
Zion leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. I want you to understand something.
You didn't just save my mother's life. You saved mine.
Because without her, I was losing myself.
Amina's breath caught slightly.
He continued, softer now. Thank you, Amina. From the deepest part of my heart. She swallowed hard, emotions tightening her throat.
You don't have to thank me. Just be there for her.
That's all she needs. He smiled, a real, warm smile that softened his entire face. I promise you, I will be. For the next few hours, they remained in the room, talking quietly, occasionally checking on Sarah. Zion asked Amina about her job, her life, her dreams, topics she never expected a billionaire to care about. When lunchtime came, he ordered food for both of them and insisted she eat something hot and fresh instead of vending machine snacks.
But I'm fine with something simple, she protested. He shook his head.
After everything you've done, the least I can do is buy you lunch. Eventually, Sarah fell into a peaceful sleep.
Amina stood and stretched. I should head home for a bit.
I need to shower and change before my evening shift.
Zion stood immediately.
I'll have my driver take you.
No,
she said quickly. I can go by myself. Amina, he said softly but firmly, I'm not letting you take the bus after everything you've been through.
Please.
Let me do this much.
His sincerity disarmed her. All right, she whispered. He escorted her to the hallway.
As they walked, Zion glanced at her with something like admiration. You know, he said, the world doesn't have many people like you.
Amina smiled softly but didn't respond.
Compliments never sat well with her. She wasn't used to being seen. At the elevator,
Zion spoke again. Be back when you can, he said gently.
She'll ask for you the moment she wakes.
Amina's heart warmed.
I'll come as soon as I finish my shift.
The elevator doors opened.
As she stepped inside,
Zion called out softly.
Amina, thank you.
The doors slid shut gently.
Amina leaned against the elevator wall, exhaling a long breath. Her life had been simple, predictable, ordinary, until now. She didn't know what the coming days would bring, but in her heart, she sensed a shift.
Not just for Sarah. Not just for Zion.
But for her own destiny. Amina returned to the hospital later that evening just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with orange and lavender streaks. The hallways were quieter now, nurses speaking softly, monitors humming, footsteps echoing faintly. The scent of antiseptic and warm food lingered in the air. She hesitated outside Sarah's room before entering, smoothing her scarf and brushing away the anxiety growing inside her.
She had never been treated as someone important before.
She wasn't used to people depending on her outside of work.
And she certainly wasn't used to a billionaire waiting for her.
When she stepped inside, she found Zion sitting beside his mother again. His sleeves were rolled up, his jacket draped over the couch, and his eyes softened when he saw her. You're back, he said, standing up.
Amina smiled shyly.
I said I would be.
Sarah shifted slightly in her bed. Amina, she whispered. Amina moved closer immediately. I'm here.
How do you feel? Better, Sarah murmured, because you're here. A warmth filled Amina's chest. She adjusted the blanket around Sarah gently, checking her temperature and watching her breathing. Zion watched her the way a person watches something precious, carefully, silently, with a kind of awe. You should rest at home tonight, he told Amina softly. You look tired.
She shook her head. I'm fine.
Let me stay for a few hours.
Sarah gestured weakly toward the chair.
Sit with us. Amina obeyed, taking a seat across the bed. Sarah's breathing steadied as she closed her eyes. For a while, none of them spoke. The quiet was comforting. Then Zion whispered, as if afraid to disturb the peace. You look exhausted.
I'm a nurse, she replied with a small smile. We don't get tired. He chuckled softly.
You're allowed to.
Amina shrugged lightly. I've been working double shifts lately.
The clinic is short-staffed.
Zion frowned.
Short-staffed? Underfunded? Overworked? You mean this clinic that pays you barely enough to survive?
She blinked. How do you know that? He hesitated. I might have looked into the clinic.
I needed to know who was taking care of my mother.
Amina's heart skipped.
You investigated me.
Not you, he said quickly.
I didn't want to invade your privacy. Just your workplace, its reputation, its resources, its general conditions. And what I found, his jaw tightened. You're doing the work of 3 people without complaining.
It's not fair. Amina looked down.
Life rarely is. Zion moved closer, leaning on the side of the bed frame. Do you ever think about leaving?
Leaving the clinic? She asked.
Yes.
She hesitated. Sometimes.
But they need me. And what about what you need?
Zion asked quietly.
Amina faltered. I never really think about that.
He softened.
You should. Before she could respond, a sudden cough from the bed startled them both. Sarah's chest tightened and she began coughing violently, her body trembling with effort.
Amina jumped to her feet instantly.
Sarah, it's okay. Breathe slowly.
Zion panicked.
Mom? Mom. Amina held Sarah upright as she gasped for breath, her frail body shaking. The coughing continued until she finally wheezed out air, collapsing back onto the pillows.
Amina checked her oxygen levels quickly.
She needs more humidification in the oxygen line. I'll call a nurse.
Zion's hands were trembling.
Is she getting worse?
Amina shook her head. No.
This happens with weak lungs and sudden temperature changes. She'll be okay. Zion exhaled shakily, brushing his mother's hair back. You scared us, Mom.
Sarah smiled weakly.
Still causing trouble.
Amina squeezed her hand gently. It's not trouble.
You're healing. After adjusting the humidifier and massaging her back gently, Amina finally got Sarah to relax again. She drifted into a calm sleep, her breathing steady.
Zion looked at Amina with immense gratitude. How do you do that? Just calm everything.
Amina exhaled, wiping her hands on her uniform. Sometimes people just need a little reassurance.
He stared at her with admiration.
You're remarkable.
She blushed lightly.
You're saying that because you're emotional right now. I would say it even if I wasn't, he replied with surprising sincerity.
Amina cleared her throat and stood. Let me get some fresh air. I'll be right back.
She stepped out into the hallway, pressing a hand against her chest.
Her heart was beating far too fast.
She told herself it was just the stress of the moment, the panic in the room.
But deep inside, she knew it wasn't only that.
Zion joined her after a few minutes, his hands in his pockets, his expression softer now.
Are you all right? He asked. Amina nodded.
Just needed a breath.
He walked beside her, both of them moving slowly down the hallway. I can't stop thinking about what you've done. You saved her life.
You listened to her when no one else would.
You protected her.
I only did what felt right, Amina whispered.
Zion shook his head lightly. It's not just that. You gave her hope when she had none.
You treated her like a human being. I've donated millions to shelters, hospitals, organizations, but somehow, kindness doesn't always reach the right places.
He paused. But you did. And you did it alone.
Amina felt something warm settle in her heart. You give me too much credit, she murmured. No, he said softly. I don't think I give you enough. They reached the small visitors' lounge at the end of the hallway. Amina sat down slowly, and Zion sat beside her.
She looked at him curiously.
Can I ask you something? Anything, he replied immediately. Why do you care about strangers? She asked. I mean, billionaires usually care about business, money, power. But you care so much about your mother, even after everything.
And about the people she met.
Zion leaned back, his eyes dimming slightly. Money means nothing if you lose the people you love. I learned that the hard way.
Amina nodded gently.
He continued, his voice lower. I didn't just lose my mother. I lost myself. I kept expanding my company, traveling, building everything I thought my parents would be proud of. But every success felt empty because she wasn't there to see it. Amina felt the weight of his confession settle in the air. And now, he said softly, because of you, she's alive.
She swallowed hard.
I didn't do it for you. I know, he said, smiling slightly. Which is exactly why it means so much. A nurse walked by, offering them a polite smile.
Amina stood up again.
Let's check on her. When they returned to the room, Sarah was awake again, her eyes soft but tired.
Did you both go somewhere? She asked faintly. Amina smiled.
Just the hallway.
Sarah motioned for them to come closer.
I'm glad you two met.
Zion raised an eyebrow. Why?
Sarah studied Amina's face.
Because she's gentle. And you need kindness in your life.
Amina looked down quickly, cheeks warming. Zion simply reached for his mother's hand. Later that night, after Sarah drifted into a deeper sleep, Amina quietly gathered her things.
I should go, she whispered to Zion.
You need rest too.
Zion nodded.
Thank you for staying. I'll come again in the morning. A driver will pick you up, he said automatically.
She shook her head.
I don't want to trouble anyone.
You're not trouble, he said softly.
You're the reason my mother is alive. Amina paused at the door, turning back one more time.
Her voice was gentle.
Get some sleep. She'll need you tomorrow.
He nodded as she left the room.
But just as Amina walked down the hallway, she heard footsteps behind her.
Amina, Zion called quietly. She turned.
He walked up to her, stopping just a step away, close enough that she could see the tired lines around his eyes, the sincerity in his expression.
I meant what I said earlier, he whispered.
You're extraordinary. And when this is over, his voice softened even more. I want to make sure your life changes too.
Amina blinked, startled. Zion, I don't need anything. I'm fine. You're not fine, he interrupted gently.
You're overworked, underpaid, and you sacrifice everything for others.
Let me help you.
Let me give back.
Amina shook her head firmly.
I didn't help your mother for a reward.
I know, he whispered.
That's why you deserve one.
She stepped back slightly.
Good night, Zion. He watched her walk away, his eyes filled with admiration she didn't see. But he said only one thing, just before she turned the corner. You changed my mother's destiny, Amina.
And I promise you, I'll change yours. Amina didn't sleep that night.
Because deep inside, something was changing, something she wasn't ready to admit. But destiny doesn't wait for permission. And hers had already begun shifting. The next morning came with a different kind of sunlight, brighter, softer, almost golden, as if the world itself knew something beautiful was about to happen. For the first time in what felt like ages, Mia woke up not to her alarm, not to exhaustion, not to fear of bills or responsibilities, but to a quiet sense of peace. She lay in bed for a moment, listening to the gentle hum of the city outside, feeling something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Hope. There was a soft knock on the door. She sat up quickly, remembering yesterday's whirlwind, the billionaire's visit, his mother's recovery, the unimaginable kindness he had shown her, and the life-changing promises he made. For a second, she wondered if she had dreamed everything. Maybe she was still exhausted. Maybe her mind had created a fantasy. But the knock came again, polite, gentle. Mia got up and opened the door. Standing outside were two well-dressed people, smiling warmly. One of them stepped forward. Miss Mia? Yes. We're from the humanitarian foundation Mr. Vincent established, the Evelyn Hart Foundation. She blinked, startled. Named after his mother. The woman nodded, smiling. Yes, and as we understand, you inspired this foundation. Mia felt her breath catch. The man held out a folder. We're here to guide you through everything Mr. Vincent has approved. Your new home, your upgraded job post at the city hospital, your scholarship fund, and the recognition ceremony he plans to hold next month. He wanted everything to be smooth, organized, and stress-free for you. Mia pressed a hand over her chest, overwhelmed. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, the woman replied. You've already done enough. They invited her to step outside, and when she did, her jaw fell open. A sleek white car waited at the curb, and beside it stood an elderly woman she recognized instantly, Evelyn. She looked dramatically better today, her hair brushed, her cheeks fuller, her posture stronger. Her eyes were bright and full of life. "Mia," Evelyn whispered with a tender smile, opening her arms. Mia hurried toward her without thinking, hugging her tightly. "You look so much better," she murmured, tears gathering in her eyes. "And you look like an angel who finally gets her wings," Evelyn replied softly, resting a hand on Mia's cheek. "Thank you for giving me a chance to live long enough to see my son again." Mia shook her head. "Please, don't thank me. Anyone would have done the same." "No," Evelyn said gently, "not anyone. Many people passed me every day. Some stared at me with pity. Others looked away as if I didn't exist. But you saw me. You saw a human being when others didn't." Her voice trembled. "You gave me hope when I had none left." Mia wiped her eyes. "I only did what felt right." "And that," Evelyn whispered, "is what makes you special." One of the staff opened the car door for them. "Mr. Vincent is waiting for you both at the new apartment." "My new apartment?" Mia repeated, startled. "Yes," the staff member said warmly. "Your new home." Mia swallowed, her throat tight. She had lived in that tiny rented place for so many years she had almost become numb to its cracks and leaking pipes and peeling walls. A home, a real home, felt like a dream she never dared to dream. As the car drove away, Mia looked out the window, holding Evelyn's hand. Cars passed, shops opened, people walked to work. The world moved as always, but Mia felt like she was watching life through a new lens. A lens where kindness mattered. A lens where goodness didn't go unnoticed. A lens where helping a stranger could alter the course of destiny. Evelyn spoke softly beside her. "You know, when I disappeared, I thought no one would ever find me. I thought my life had ended. But you sat with me when I was cold. You fed me when I was hungry. You gave me medicine when I was too weak to move. I saw angels in movies, but I never believed in them, until I met you." Mia's voice was quiet. "I just wanted you to be okay." "And because of you," Evelyn whispered, "I am." The car approached a tall building, modern, elegant, sparkling in the sunlight. A place Mia knew she could never afford in her wildest dreams. The moment she stepped out, she froze, unable to process it. "This can't be my home," she murmured. But it was. Vincent stepped forward from the lobby entrance, smiling gently. "Mia." She felt a rush of nerves. I don't think I can accept this." "You already have," Vincent said softly. "This is not a favor. This is gratitude. Respect. An acknowledgement of a kindness so pure it changed lives." He gestured. "Come on. See your place." She followed him inside the elevator, Evelyn's hand on her arm for reassurance. They stepped onto the 15th floor. Vincent unlocked the door and pushed it open. Mia gasped. The apartment was breathtaking. Warm wooden floors, large windows overlooking the city, soft golden lighting, and cozy furniture that looked inviting rather than extravagant. It didn't feel like a billionaire's gift. It felt like a home designed with love and thoughtfulness. There were flowers on the table. A small bookshelf filled with medical and personal development books. A balcony with a small chair and table, the kind of place someone could sit and enjoy morning tea. "This is too much," Mia whispered, tears forming. "No," Vincent said gently. "It's not even close to enough." She turned to him. "But why me? I didn't do anything extraordinary. I helped someone who needed it." "And that," Vincent replied, "is exactly what makes it extraordinary." He took a breath, emotion flickering in his eyes. "My mother was gone for years." "Years, Mia?" "I searched everywhere. Police, detectives, posters, everything. But she disappeared completely. I had almost lost hope. Then you found her. You, a woman with nothing to gain, gave her life back to her."
His voice softened.
How do you repay something like that? Mia wiped her cheeks. I didn't expect anything.
I know, Vincent whispered.
That's why you deserve everything. Evelyn walked over, gently holding Mia's hands. You've earned a place in our hearts forever. They spent the next hour walking through the new home, bedroom, kitchen, small study area, balcony.
Each room felt more real than the last.
By the time they finished, Mia's heart felt full to the brim.
Vincent then handed her a folder.
Inside was a document stating she had been offered a position at one of the best hospitals in the city, with higher pay, better hours, and full benefits. Along with it was another document, a scholarship fund named
the Mia Thompson Kindness Scholarship,
for students who want to become nurses but cannot afford school. Mia covered her mouth with her hand, trembling. This is too beautiful. I don't know how to thank you. Vincent stepped forward, his expression sincere.
You already did. You saved my mother.
Everything else is just my attempt to balance a scale that can never truly be balanced. For a moment, they stood there, the billionaire, his mother, and the humble nurse who unknowingly became the pillar of their reunion. Later that day, Evelyn and Vincent left to attend a foundation meeting, but not before promising Mia that they would be back the next morning to take her out for breakfast as a family. As Mia stood alone on the balcony of her new home, the evening sun painting the sky orange and pink, she closed her eyes and breathed deeply.
She thought of all the nights she sat with Evelyn in the cold alley. All the times she fed her using her own salary.
All the days she hid her exhaustion behind a gentle smile.
All the times she doubted whether kindness still mattered in the world. And now, here she was. Not because she asked for anything. Not because she expected something. But because she simply cared.
A soft breeze brushed her face as she whispered to herself. Maybe kindness really does come back to you in ways you never expect. Down below, the city moved on, unaware of the beautiful miracle unfolding in a quiet corner of its skyline.
But Mia knew.
She knew the truth she would carry for the rest of her life.
Helping a stranger, loving without expecting, caring without reward,
could change your destiny forever.
And that was the real treasure. The kind that no amount of money could buy.
The kind that starts in the heart and finds its way back to you like a blessing. And so, in a world that often forgets the value of a simple act of kindness, one poor nurse proved something extraordinary. That compassion given quietly can echo louder than any applause.
Mia never expected a reward.
She never imagined her small acts of care would reunite a broken family, inspire a billionaire, and create opportunities for countless future nurses.
All she wanted was to help someone who was hurting.
And without knowing it, she changed her own destiny. Evelyn found her son again. Vincent found the mother he thought he lost forever.
And Mia?
She found a new life, not built on wealth, but on the power of goodness. This story reminds us of something incredibly important. You never know whose life you're touching, and you never know how your kindness might return to you in the most unexpected way. Sometimes, helping one stranger can open doors you never knew existed. Sometimes, the smallest kindness can rewrite the biggest destinies. Thank you for watching. If this story touched your heart, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. And remember,
be kind, even when no one is watching.
Because life has a beautiful way of rewarding the brave hearts who give without expecting anything in return.